Inhumans are rampant everywhere, and yet not a single one shows up in the MCU. Season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So Season 3 picks up after the battle of Season 2, in which the remaining Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fought against the faction of Inhumans led by Daisy's mom. And in the aftermath of that, there was a lot of Terrigen crystals that were released into the ocean that got into the ecosystem down there, and now it's been mass produced into fish oil. And so the fish oil is being eaten by just humans around the world, which is leading to a big explosion of just Inhumans. This was briefly shown at the end of last season. Right at the beginning of this season, you see someone that took fish oils, you see some of the destruction that they've caused, and you see right away S.H.I.E.L.D. intervening to be able to rescue this individual and kind of explain to them what's happened. This really is an Inhuman heavy and Inhuman focused season. There's organizations rising up to kind of keep them in check or control them. I personally don't have an issue with them being subbed in as mutant kind, even now as we learn that the X-Men and other mutant kind is eventually going to work its way into Marvel. I think it's great to introduce the Inhumans like this, and having the season be very Inhuman focused really drives the whole season's story, and even more so in the second part. Now this season, just like the last season before it, is very much split into two parts. First part really deals with this Inhuman outbreak, with the governments that get involved, the different organizations. S.H.I.E.L.D. try and do the best that they can. This is also, I would say, the first season since the first one in which S.H.I.E.L.D. almost looks like it's 100% back to where it was. It's not quite there, but they're almost there. They have a lot more resources than they have had in the past. Their staff has grown. And right after season 2, in which you saw how integrated Hydra really was, in the sense that they even had Hydra office buildings with Hydra cubicles, it's good to kind of see S.H.I.E.L.D. slowly creeping back up to what they once were. Now Hydra is still out there. They're not as rampant as they were in the second season. Early on in the season, Ward trying to just rebuild Hydra on his own before learning how much history the organization actually has. And the first part of the season, with everything Inhuman related, leads up to S.H.I.E.L.D. and other organizations racing to another planet. And from there, you then jump into the second part of the season, which deals with a certain individual alien that comes from that planet and drives the narrative of that second part of the season. And to me personally, this is the season where I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. really takes off, in the sense that now it's leading its own narratives as opposed to being almost shackled by the Marvel tie-ins. Whereas season 2 really improved upon the first season and started telling its own story, this one also does that, almost to the level of, we don't really care what's going on in the Marvel movies. The Marvel movies have their own thing going on, but we're going to do our own story without consequence. And what I mean by that is that they can tell their own story, have it be its own little corner in this universe, but still deal with heavy world-changing things, because that's how comic books are written. Every day a different hero is saving the world in one way or another, and so S.H.I.E.L.D. now is doing that in this season. And they're doing it in their own way without having to rely on tie-ins to the Marvel Universe, but it's still great to play in that same universe. Because the way it leads its own narrative, the show really lives and breathes on its own, and I think that makes it a really strong season. Some of the governmental entities that are introduced, I do feel kind of are introduced and then kind of left out, which isn't a big deal. It just seems like this organization just sprang out of nowhere just because of the Inhumans, and then kind of just isn't really mentioned again. I feel like it would have been neat if maybe, instead of what they are called, if they would have been called SWORD, the organization that actually exists in the comics that deals with extraterrestrial things. That way you could either tie into it later on, or just have it be its own thing for the future, or something like that. But that way it kind of feels a little bit more familiar, and it feels like even if they don't mention it again, it's still kind of existing out there. Just like in the movies, how, you know, Hydra might still be out there, but they don't mention it a lot. Or how AIM and the 10 Rings are still out there, but it's not really mentioned, because it's a name you know and it's introduced to you. Or even something as small as the Roxxon Corporation that isn't mentioned at all, but it does play a factor in other aspects of this universe. You remember, or you can remember it later on. So I feel like using a more familiar name for that government organization would have been a little bit better. Overall, the season does a great job of living with its own group of superheroes. The Secret Warriors, Lash is a great addition to this season. The villains that come in are really great and very unique to what they've done before. So I had a lot of fun with this season. It's a very strong entry for all the different seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's easy to get through if you're binging through it, because it is split into those two sections, but it's a lot of fun, and it doesn't really leave any big cliffhangers. And overall, it's a great time. Let me know what you guys thought about season 3 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If you preferred the first part as opposed to the second part, or vice versa. But leave a comment, like this video, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.